Can you discuss the security implication? Sorry, can you discuss the security implications of using cognito user pools versus identity pools, particularly in scenarios involving third-party authentication providers?
Absolutely. I would say the first, I'll say three things, the main implications. With user pools, you would control the security policies directly. Identity pools generally require very careful IAM policy configuration to ensure least privilege access. And involving third-party authentication providers, I'd say that requires extra scrutiny, in particular to handling token validation. So, um, for let's say for security implications, if you wanted to use cognito user pools, you would generally follow or control those security policies directly. So whenever a third party wants to, for let's say if it's a service integrator, a third party needs access to a specific AWS environment, you would use user pools to make sure that as a user is authenticating in, they would have only the strict amount of access that's needed. However, if you're assigning an IAM policy, or excuse me, you're putting them into identity pool than IAM, then it's a similar outcome, but a different method of doing it. In both cases, similar, make sure it's the least privilege access, but just different ways of doing it. It's two different routes to get to the same least privilege access destination, but definitely different ways to do both.
It's interesting. So I have a question because I've always tried to wrap my heads around it because one is called user pools, the other one's called identity pools, right? What's the best way to think about the difference between them? What's a simple way for the audience to think that how they can remember what the difference is?
The user pool is essentially for, let's say, authentication to an entity that you know is going to continuously log in, obviously mostly a human user. Either a role or identity would be, it may not be a human that needs continuous re-authentication over time. So if someone needs a server to be given access so that I'll use an actual example, a license server. If someone's hosting a SaaS application in a customer's environment, that license server will need to have some permissions. So they would have an identity and given machine level access temporarily, and then that would be spun down once that license server is connected to. Whereas if you get a new hire and that person needs to be given a role added to the user pool because they're going to need to re-authenticate over time.